Let's start the show. This is the GPL Podcast, sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at firstclassmortgage.com. Now, here's Jupe and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL Podcast, episode number 183. Well, Vigs, no guest this week. It's just you and I to talk about just some Gopher puck. And, you know, as I put on the live broadcast, one streak ends, another one begins. Meaning, as Matsko would say, sometimes someone's going to punch us in the face or punch us in the nose, whatever. And that happened at game one against the Badgers.
Yeah, I think we expected a good matchup with Wisconsin. They have a lot of talent on their roster, and it seemed like they're playing a little bit more competitive hockey. I think the surprising thing out of that first game of the series was the strength of their goaltending. I thought their goaltending played better than I expected it to be and kept them in the game. There were a lot of rebounds available for Gopher forwards to pounce on, but they just never were able to really find them. And just couldn't close the gap.
Well, I'd always been predicting sweep. Couldn't do it. I feel terrible about that. I feel like I let everyone down, but you know how it is. In the long run, I think I like the lessons learned, and that when another team brings it, like Wisconsin did, Vigs. Wisconsin was busting their ass all weekend, and it took it took the Gophers to kind of raise their game on game two to get a split in Wisconsin.
So here's where I'm going to maybe go off the rails a little bit.
Go for it.
I don't think it was so much that they weren't playing well on the first game of the series, Saturday night. I think what the issue was is they weren't working hard enough to get goals and that secondary scoring chances. They got plenty of opportunities. Their power play got a couple chances. Their penalty kill was pretty good on the weekend. But sometimes when you're in that game where you're not getting the bounces, you have to raise it to an even higher level and outplay the team you're playing. You can't just match them. And you can't just have to answer the bell. You have to take it to another level and really just take control of the game and force your own luck. Because I think you're going to get in games in college hockey that are going to be 1-goal games. So you're going to have to get more effort than they're used to giving. You can't play with a lead all the time. One of these times you're going to get bounces against you. Like on Sunday's game, Wisconsin hit a pipe pretty soon after Walker's goal.
Mm-hmm.
And if that goes in, maybe Wisconsin gets a little more energy and gets a go-ahead goal, and the Gophers are in that same position where they just have to create just a little bit more. So I don't think it was necessarily they didn't come to play. They didn't bring their effort. I thought they actually played kind of okay on Saturday. It's just sometimes you need a little bit more
to finish the deal.
Yeah, to finish the deal, because you're going to be in games like that where you don't get the bounces.
I also noticed as I was sitting there kind of as a fan, like there was just even, both nights, there was just some, bounces where the net was wide open. It would just bounce over a stick or a Wisconsin player would check a stick real late or something like that. It just seemed like the bounces weren't quite going their way. Whereas I would say maybe early in the season, they had quite a few fortunate bounces.
Yeah, I think there may be a few fortunate bounces there, but you just also have to be in position where you're just going to be like, I'm not going to let this puck bounce through me. I'm not going to let my stick get lifted. And you just have to really fight through it. I think missing Scott Reedy maybe hurt them a little bit from that standpoint, because he's one of those players where he can play a hard, dirty, tight game and create space for himself and not be moved. I think some of the other players, like they're still going through the motions on how to compete in a game like that. And to win, especially as we look ahead to a potential NCAA tournament run, you're going to have to create your own luck sometimes. And I think that's kind of that next step. I don't think it was, they were checked out and got outplayed that much.
And like you mentioned earlier, the goaltending for Wisconsin was much better than we've seen the past few years. He really played well.
He played well in the first shot, and sometimes, a decent goaltender, that's all you ask of them is make that first save. We'll clean up the rebounds. We won't let players get second chances. We'll clear the puck. And he did that. I think sometimes, an elite top level goalie doesn't give up the rebounds. And in the game, rebounds were there. I asked the players. Yeah, both sides. I asked the players about that. They're just like, we knew they were there. We just needed to keep pounding them and keep finding pucks. And I think that's a good lesson for them to go into this series with Notre Dame coming up is rebounds are there if you shoot in the right spots. So good lessons to get on film, and we'll see what they take from it. I was very encouraged to see Walker and McLaughlin start to play like they can play. I kind of noticed it a little bit the first game. They were a little more engaged, McLaughlin especially. The second game, I thought Walker got more engaged.
Yeah, that's what I was going to roll into, McLaughlin and Walker, because they definitely have stepped up their game the last couple of games. And so much so that, Motzko was saying he really likes that they finally he even said today, it's not that they were playing bad. We just needed them to score. They were doing a lot of the other things, but now we just need that, okay, guys, you're doing great. Now we need you to put the puck in the net. And they've kind of started doing that.
Yeah, they're starting to do that. I think McLaughlin's got a couple tips and things where he's around the net. He can be a real pest to play against. When he's engaged and he's into the game and he's not getting into little fights with players, but he's actually sticking to productive hockey, he's a gnat out there and can be difficult. And I think one of the things that they did especially well in the second game is back pressure, and they could create some transition opportunities. And that's where they really shine. I mean, you look at them on the penalty kill, how hard they are to play against, because usually they start with Nelson and Myers, and then they go into McLaughlin and Walker, and their speed just puts so much pressure on the other team that they can create turnovers. Now, the thing is, you got to get your turnover, and then you got to go. I asked Blake McLaughlin about that today. It's like, what's the key to getting transition? It's like, if the D haven't gapped up yet and you can create a turnover and get some pace, you've put them into a really bad situation. They've got to decide, do I gap up to close the gap so you don't have tons of time once you get the entry? Do they sit back and let you get a clean entry and have time and space to make a play on the rush? That's the challenge against those guys when they're really going.
One thing that was also brought up at the media session today was, Motzko was talking about his fourth line, which we don't really call it that, but for one thing, he really loves Cullen Munson. He loves his 110% that he gives on every shift. But the combo of Munson and Jackson Nelson, he was really praising that group.
Well, I think Jackson Nelson has really grown this year as a reliable player, and I think he'll make any line work when he's on the ice. He's got such length that it's difficult to get to the center of the ice, and he's a good skater. He can get up and down the rink. He's been really good on draws. I think the problem is sometimes when you have lower lines with less talented players, if they lose a draw in their defensive zone and they're out against a skilled opponent, it can really put you on your heels. You get tired, you start chasing the puck, lose your structure, bad things can happen. I think with him, he can win a lot of faceoffs and get you going in the right direction, especially with the defenseman that Minnesota has on their blue line.
And that's kind of what, Motzko was saying today. He says, I love putting those guys out against, the other team's top line. I know they're going to do well. They're going to keep pressure on that line defensively and offensively. And then doing that could cause, better matchups for them, when all of a sudden, maybe that third or fourth line comes out for the other team. And then all of a sudden now you have the mismatch because that your fourth line is not a liability, whereas other teams, your third and fourth line could be a liability.
Sometimes I worry about that, hearing that from a coach where he doesn't care about the line matchups. I would almost want him to say, if the other team wants to do that to us, then I intentionally as a coach want to put my first line against your fourth line and see how that goes. Because from my perspective, some of the nights where he's been trying to figure out how to use Walker and McLaughlin and get them going, I would like to see them out against another team's fourth line, because the speed and pressure that they can put on an unskilled line is a difference maker, and that could really get them going. And I've seen that a couple nights where they'll start, with the Myers line and then going to the Reedy line and then going to the Walker line. And I think that's a nice thing to try to get those guys going, because I think some of those other players, they can kind of play against anybody. They play a little heavier game, but I think that Walker McLaughlin line can really take advantage of a mismatch if the other team's going to give it to you.
Do we know what happened to Reedy?
We don't. It's been
didn't he play? He played the first game, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he was really quiet though. Maybe that's why he went out during that game and I didn't notice it, but
yeah, I think he played through the end, and some people were saying, maybe he's stretching his back or something maybe came up, upper body thing, but it's been real quiet from you. It's interesting. I was listening to Mazzacco in the post game with Motzko, and he's like, what I really like about you, Bob, is you never short answer us. You always give us a good long answer. And then just seconds later, because I'm trying to time up the radio post game with the media availability,
yep,
Motzko gets asked by Jess, any update on Reedy? Motzko, nope. I was like, you just short answered Jess. I mean, if there's somebody in our media scrums who's going to get short answered, I think it's going to be Jess these days.
You crazy?
Those two get after each other pretty good sometimes. It's all in good fun, though.
It is. Well, I just kind of wanted to mention for those of you maybe listening to the podcast that, we record this usually on Wednesday nights around 9:30. And one thing we've always done is done some type of live broadcast, either whether it was just audio for many years, but this year we're doing the YouTube thing where we're streaming live. And so people can go and watch us on YouTube as we record. And, we've got it's like 28 people right now watching us live. So if you want to participate in the podcast, this is your way to do it. Just come on, watch us on YouTube, when we tweet it out, or just follow us on our YouTube channel. If you subscribe, you'll get notified when we're live and even when we post other videos. And then you can, when we're sitting here recording our podcast, you can ask us questions and give us your thoughts and just throw your ideas at us. What do you want us to discuss? So make sure if you're listening live or you're listening on recording, give us a try and watch us live. It's something we've been doing for a long time, but I'm just kind of reiterating it, Viggs.
Yeah, I know Eric's in the chat right now asking if he thought Motzko made a mistake pulling Laffer with a couple minutes to go in the game.
A power play.
And a power play. I know you were one of the guys, I think, that criticized it live, maybe on Twitter.
I don't remember.
It was either you or Chris. Was Chris on the
No,
GPL?
It was me on the feed the other night.
That was you. Maybe too much gin.
Okay. I didn't drink that night. Maybe it's just old. I'm forgetting.
Okay. You made a critique, but I personally liked the move. If you're out there on the power play and the other goalie has been giving up rebounds all night, having that extra attacker in that situation is what you want. Because that the rebounds are going to be there and that you have the opportunity to put one of those back. It's probably the easiest way to score in hockey is a rebound where the goalie's out of position and you're uncovered. If you have two extra players out there, you should have two guys free to jump pucks on rebounds, and they should be uncovered, no stick on them. It's the easiest play in hockey. Just jump a loose puck and fire it home to an empty net. So I like having the extra player out there. The problem is you had a freshman defenseman, Caster, who's tired maybe and just misplays a puck and it goes the other way and you would lose the game. Maybe if you have a more veteran player out there who's not tired, he makes the smart play, maintains possession of the zone, you keep going. But I like that playing a goal.
Do you like to do it for the whole time? I mean, they could have, because, oh boy, what was it? When did the penalty happen? About 40 seconds, 240 or something? I can't remember. Maybe the first minute, keep it even or keep it one man plus, and then maybe play your guy. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. So
I like making that decision
yeah.
when you have possession and maybe you're out against a tired penalty kill and you get that extra pressure. I like it in that situation. Sometimes I like it, especially if you had like a 6-on-3. I like having 3 extra players out there for that kind of situation because you can force the penalty kill into a situation where they're outgunned. And if the pucks are going to be there, you want those extra players.
Yep. Let's set up a Twitter question. Hockey fan 2020. Not a great year there, hockey fan. Can't you pick a better? Maybe change it to 2021 or something. I know this could all change due to COVID. How do you guys see the NCAA tourney playing out for hockey? Top 16 in the polls make the tourney. Conference winners with auto bid. Love to hear your thoughts. Great show. Keep up the work. Thanks for the praise. We may not know for a while. And they may even leave it up to the leagues. They say, hey, do you want your auto bid to your playoff champion, regular season champion? Is it going to be a smoky room like it was in the past? But maybe there's no smoking now. But it's really hard to speculate right now because we just don't have any idea what's going to happen there.
I just hope I get invited to the Zoom call.
Fly on the wall?
Yeah, fly on the wall. Maybe Don will invite me. But I think we'll see.
Hey, Don likes you. You didn't rip on him as much as the rest of us.
It's the hair. He respects the hair.
Yeah, you are. Hey, look at it. If you're listening, you can't see, but Vig's flow is starting to come in pretty good. I've seen it much longer.
It has been longer, but I think it's in good shape right now.
Got some great photos when it was like down to here at one of the WCHA Final Fives years ago.
Maybe a little too long at that point, but I've been repping the Dapper Wolf haircut, and it's a good gig. So I enjoy it. But I think we'll see the automatic qualifiers from each of the leagues get in. I think there's going to be conference tournaments for all the leagues. They'll figure out a way to get that team in there. And then the rest, I think the coaches are just going to figure it out. They're going to look at who are the best teams. I think we know that most years. It helps to have the pairwise numbers because it's a lot of fun for us to try to figure out the scenarios on the last night of the tournament. But we usually know who the teams that deserve to get in are. And maybe the pairwise helps us get there. But you can look at Hockey East, NCAC, Big Ten, WCHA, ECAC, you know who the best teams are in those leagues usually by the end of the year. It helps, if you're trying to figure out, does the NCHC really deserve 4 teams? You're not going to know that this year. And I don't think the other leagues will let them get 4 teams in, despite Josh Fenton kind of trying to campaign for something like that, where you look at the history. I think they'll get 3.
Yeah.
The big question is the Big Ten. Could they get 3? Could they get 2? That's where it comes in because ECAC obviously doesn't have very many teams to put forth this year.
And it's also looking like the regionals might be sticking at the regionals.
Maybe.
I mean, that's what Schlossman was saying earlier this week. It looks like it's going to be at Shields in Fargo.
That's what he's hoping. We'll see what happens. I could see them consolidating to super regional sites or something like that, but it's really hard to know what they're going to do. This would be the perfect year to do an on-campus best of 3 first round, but that won't happen. It'd be fun though.
Total go 2-game series.
I don't know if I'd go so far as the old school, which might have been the worst with the mini game. If it was side, I would not like that. But I do like the best of 3 at a campus site for the first round. That'd be a lot of fun.
The chatters are liking your flow there, Viggs. Mote, elite hockey flow.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Got to have the auto bids for crappy conferences. I mean, AIC, I can't even say it, did beat St. Cloud. That's coming from Brent, Mr. Hoven himself.
They did. And the team that comes out of Atlantic hockey at the end of the year, they're going to be a gritty, old veteran squad that's playing well. And that's not an easy out for a talented fancy pants team. And it's not going to be an easy out. There are no easy outs in college hockey at the end of the year. If you can get out of your conference tournament, you're going to be tough to beat. And you're going to have a game where the team says, all right, we're going to play hard-nosed hockey. We're going to play percentage hockey. We're going to take pucks to the net. We're going to look for rebounds. We're going to stay out of the box. And if you don't do that, you're going to get beat.
You know, a couple of guys mentioned BU's only played 2 games this year. They're really struggling out east, Biggs. They just are.
Yeah,
it could hurt those big traditional programs like a BU.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get in that situation like where Ohio State only played 6 games and still got through in college hockey if you've only played 12 games. I don't think that's enough of a resume to clearly identify if you're in that top 16. It's a lot trickier, I think, unless you go undefeated maybe in Hockey East in your BC or BU.
It's a goofy year. We just have to adjust on the fly, and that's what teams have been doing. You see it in the NCHC. They've pushed out some series this weekend. Just a couple days, nothing too major. But I mean, the women's hockey team, especially in the WCHA, it's been all over the place. But speaking of the women, both the women and the men now ranked number 1 for the first time at the same time since 2014. Minnesota ruling college hockey, Vigs.
It's fun to see, isn't it? Love to see it.
And I believe the Saturday game with Wisconsin and Minnesota women is going to be on FSN.
Well, that would be great if that's the case.
I know I heard one of them is going to be on FSN, and it might be right before the Minnesota Notre Dame game this weekend. So it's just nice that hockey's back. Like we were talking before the show, it's like NHL's back on. We got something to watch now. I was kind of going back and forth with Schlossman a little bit. Was it today? Saying, hey, now North Dakota has played every day of the week, and as of this week, when we played on a Saturday, we have now officially played on every 7 days of the week. Oh, here the traditionalists. Oh, like Friday, Saturday. Friday. I'm like, I think it's been kind of refreshing with nothing else going on. It's been nice, like on a Monday night. I've got to go for hockey I can watch. It hasn't bothered me so much, especially since the NHL isn't playing. And then funny, it's the NHL starts playing now. And we've got a Thursday, Friday series next week. Then it's all Friday, Saturday, the rest of the season, at least, barring no delays. I can't complain with the schedule this year, Viggs.
I can't complain with it because it's a pandemic and we can't go to the arena. It's a little more tolerable when it's on TV, but when the games are at Mariucci Arena, 3M at Mariucci Arena, it's nice to have it on a Friday and Saturday. And I totally respect that and get it. I don't mind having some of the things around the holidays be moved around, to fit TV slots and maybe get extra eyes on a game. Like when they tried the North Dakota game on Thanksgiving, I thought that was kind of a fun little thing for them to try to allow college hockey to maybe shine a spotlight on that one. Mm-hmm. And I don't mind things like that every once in a while, but I think, hopefully next year we get back into the Friday, Saturday routine like we have coming up for the rest of the year.
It will be nice to get back to normal. And like I said, the NHL starting, so I won't be as bored, but hockey, obviously the Wild starting up tomorrow night. They're playing a 54 game season, something close to that.
Something around there, 54, 56 maybe.
And they're going to they're having COVID issues as well. What is it? It seems like half the Dallas Stars are out with COVID. So, NBA is having issues. When they were all locked down, just a couple months ago, they did an excellent job. Both leagues were just off the charts good. But now, boy, it's going to be a tricky road for those 2 leagues.
Now, there's so much community spread right now with this virus that it's difficult, I think, for these teams to get by if they have people who aren't disciplined. And even if they are disciplined, there's still ways for them to get the virus and not know. And then you get an outbreak on a team and they're going to have to pause. And I know with college hockey, I don't know how the NCHC is going to figure out how to schedule their full schedule if these outbreaks keep happening, and they're going to have to start truncating it at some point. The Big Ten's built in that extra week to try to
all it
plan
takes
for
is
something.
a couple series, and then all of a sudden 1 week's not enough.
Right. Exactly. So I think we should be counting ourselves lucky to see as much Gopher hockey as we've seen so far this season. And maybe, the team has got some herd immunity to it that might protect it as the season goes on, but we'll see.
Well, before we get into a few more questions from the chatters and one from Twitter, we need to hear from our sponsor.
Hey, fellow GPLers, this is Jerry Peters from First Class Mortgage. Interest rates are near all-time lows and property values are on the rise. Lower your interest rate and remove monthly PMI at the same time to save thousands of dollars. Or use the equity in your home for debt consolidation and home improvement. The housing market is still hot, so make sure you're prepared by getting a pre-approval letter from me before you start shopping. Mention you heard about me on the GPL podcast and receive a $300 closing cost credit. Some restrictions do apply. Call me today at 612-940-3291 or visit firstclassmortgage.com to fill out a free online application. My NMLS number is 480200. First Class Mortgages is 322842. This is not an offer to lock into an interest rate agreement under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
All right. Of course, we thank Jerry for continuing to sponsor the podcast. I'm seeing a bunch of questions here in the chat, but let's first get over to another Twitter question. We'd like to hit those first. Tim Hapke, he's always asking questions. And he's like, what are the requirements to be a grad assistant? Do they need to take a certain number of classes? Could it be for a master's degree as well? He votes for Thomas Vanek to come on as the next grad assistant next year. I mean, maybe he might have seen the video he posted from the media availability today. He's, they're talking about, Paul Martin in the fall was taking 4 or 5 classes, wasn't there as much. Now he's taking 1. He's there more. He loves having Paul there. Him and Raboyne are like this, they're real close, but working well together. And he was even saying, I wish we could keep him for another year. I guess that's meaning that Paul's kind of really actually finishing up his schooling and it'll be time to move on. So do you know much about that how all that works, Viggs?
I believe you have to be an undergrad student to qualify for this program. So I don't think Paul can pursue a master's degree and still be an assistant coach this way. But I know it's been bandied about that Vanek would be a potential fit as a grad assistant. He hasn't graduated from college yet. Maybe
he's probably got quite a bit of schooling left.
Yeah, probably does. So probably would have to get into that. I know Martin's just got the 1 class right now. So that's probably an ideal situation for him to help out with the team and manage 1 class, because 4 and 5 classes and trying to do all the stuff that's involved with coaching is pretty complicated, especially, everything else that's going on in life these days. But yeah, I think it is a good partnership. Rabs is a pretty high strung individual and very intense. Paul is definitely not that.
Mr. Chill.
He is pretty chill dude. And I'm sure he's easy for some of the players to gravitate to, as Motzko was talking about during availability today. And he just probably has a different perspective on everything, whereas Rabs is pretty focused on penalty kill and positioning and footwork and sticks. Paul's a little more free flowing on things.
Let me see, Brian in the live chat. Any predictions on a Frozen Four? Minnesota, BC, St. Cloud, North Dakota, perhaps. Those are the 4 top teams in the polls right now. I don't think that's a bad selection there. You got Brian. Definitely, boy, wouldn't that be fun? And I noticed a couple others saying, hey, maybe even Wisconsin sneaks in there because, they're a good team as well. And, they've got the talent, especially the young talent to do it. It's just, like we've kind of said the last couple of years, they just haven't been able to quite get it together. But, boy, they're on the rise as well. I mean, what are some other teams you could see getting to the Frozen Four, however this NCAA thing turns out, Viggs?
I mean, I could definitely see Michigan getting there with as much firepower as they have now that they'll have their
they
team
haven't really
together.
Put it together though yet. I mean, they're kind of, they're like 500 right now. They need to really kick it up and start winning some games.
I think it's difficult right now with all those things around World Juniors and getting your team organized for a team like that to be on the rails. And now that we're in the second half where teams are in their usual schedules of a game every weekend, that's going to give Mel Pearson a lot of time to teach those young forwards how to play disciplined hockey. Because as you get in the Big Ten, like Minnesota's going to see this weekend with Notre Dame, you have to play positionally sound hockey to be successful. And when you have young forwards like that who like to take chances and play offense, they don't always see that side of the game until you can really show it to them in video. And you can see a lot of growth in the second half for a team like that.
But you look at this past weekend, at home, Michigan State comes into Michigan, and was it 9 different scorers, 9 goals? Goalie gets 2 assists on the night. Whoa. And then the next night they lose at Munn. So Michigan, they've got to get some consistency before they think about moving up.
Yeah. But we've seen that out of Michigan State before. When they played the Gophers and had a tough first night, they come ready to play the next night. They get the message. College hockey players can flip switches like that. These are young kids. It's easy to see a 9-0 game.
9-0. That's embarrassing.
It is.
That's
Minnesota last year against North Dakota got absolutely run out of the building, and the next night played better. It can happen. It can happen.
They're also saying don't forget about Duluth. Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to forget about Duluth, Vigs. They're the 2-time national champion. They were coming on again last year. Don't sleep on those Bulldogs.
It feels to me that unless North Dakota, Duluth, and St. Cloud fall apart, those look like the 3 teams from the NCHC. I mean, maybe we could see another team from that league rise up and steal a spot, or maybe get a 4th spot. But those 3 programs, they've earned it over the last couple of years.
Mote. What about Manstinko?
I mean, Mike Hastings has built up a lot of cred the last couple of years. I thought they probably had their best chance to win an NCAA tournament game last year. I feel bad for the guy. He had guys come back. He had a productive team. They were in a good position. Maybe they learned something from their really collapse against Providence when they gave up 3 goals in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You learn from that and maybe move forward. But it's hard to know how many schools out of the WCHA can get in. Bowling Green looks like they're the team that's got the best record right now, but it's hard.
Yeah, that whole league's a mess right now. They're having a little more COVID problems than the rest. And yeah, Bowling Green was doing well, and then they split with Bemidji last weekend or something like that, and that's the WCHA is a big question mark right now. It just is.
Oh, we don't know how good the WCHA is because we don't have the interconference games to really judge. Are they deserving of more than one team? And which sometimes, in Minnesota State plays the schedule they have, they can show their book of business, as Mike Hastings like to call it, and you go, wow, they held their own against the big time teams. Maybe they deserve a shot. We don't have that this year. Sorry. Your book of business is C Corps or something. I don't know.
Your book of business is, you've lost 2 teams in your league. Is Huntsville playing this year?
I'm pretty sure they are, right?
I haven't heard anything from them, I guess.
I don't know.
Vig's gonna get on the Google and look it up. I just haven't heard. I haven't heard much from Huntsville. I mean, we've heard about, hey, there you've got some donors about trying to keep the program going, even though they don't have league next year. But I guess I haven't heard if they're actually playing this year.
You got to let me know in the show prep what we're going to get into. I don't study a lot.
Well, that's what I like about the show. I just kind of go on the fly. I used to take all these notes and things like that, and I never follow it. I'm like, we'll just fake it. Brent Hovind says they're playing.
Yep, they're 2-5-1. So I don't think they're doing too great. So 8 games though, that's good.
Yeah.
Bowling Green, they've got their 14 games played. That puts them ahead of the WCHA, I guess. So
they had fans, Tim Hadke says. So
got to get revenue somehow. Cam Talbot can't pay the entire freight for them. Although we heard they've got
no, Brent. I'm saying they lost 2 teams this year because the Alaska schools aren't playing this year. I mean, because of COVID. Obviously, they're kicking out 3 teams and forming their own new league, but the Alaska teams just aren't even playing this year, which would have been their last year on the WCHA anyway. So, Notre Dame coming to town, Vigs. Low-scoring affairs, close games. It's what we always see with Notre Dame, no matter if it's here, there, or anywhere. McLaughlin was saying this afternoon that he's had some good memories, he's had some bad memories, but the bad memory when he was in the box, controversial call, overtime penalty, that one still hurts the most. But one thing I do like about that is that, he remembers that. That's still that was a couple seasons ago, and that's still in his mind. And it's those kind of things that can build a rivalry, and that's kind of what we talked about this afternoon with the media. Is that is this Notre Dame team starting to become a good rival of Minnesota?
Well, they've got enough players with Minnesota ties as well that
and
the
a brand
players,
new one.
Yeah, and a new one in Jake Boltman, who is in the lineup, in the top 4 defensemen for the Irish. He's a talented player, hard player to go up against, physical guy. It'll be interesting to see if he's got any, grudges towards Minnesota, since he didn't have a spot in the program and wanted to play college hockey sooner than later. So it'll be fun to see him in the lineup. I'm sure he's looking forward to it. But it should be a good matchup. There's a lot of Notre Dame alums in Minnesota, and they're very proud. Yep, Don Lucia.
Don will be wearing his Notre Dame jersey this weekend.
Jacket. He'll have his leather jacket on. Maybe he'll watch Rudy sometime this week. Get excited for it. But I think it is a good series. The only thing with Notre Dame is they do play that defensive style that's complicated to play against. I think I heard one of the Gopher assistant coaches once go, "Why would you go to Notre Dame? They don't let you try to score goals. Wouldn't you like to do that at Minnesota? We play offense here." So it's a battle of styles that I think requires some discipline out of Minnesota. And I feel like there's enough, experience now in the roster where they can hold their own against Notre Dame. I don't think they turn the puck over a lot at the blue lines. We haven't had that discussion a lot this year where you go, gosh, stop turning the puck over at the blue lines. They are much more disciplined when they don't have numbers, putting the puck deep and retrieving it and getting on the forecheck. And they're putting it in the right spots too. So that makes me think they're not just doing it because they think that's what they're supposed to do. It's part of the game plan and they're following through it.
Now, someone was mentioning this in the chat earlier, how Wisconsin was really pressuring us a little more than other teams. Notre Dame's going to see this. Oh, Minnesota doesn't play so well when you pressure them. Maybe they try to do the same thing. Will we see that, or was it just a fluke, or maybe just Wisconsin was just being over aggressive? How do you feel about that?
I think a little bit of that is Wisconsin being over aggressive. I think that's the style that they like to play, especially on the penalty kill. They want to try to apply pressure when they can. And if you're not on time to apply pressure, you pull back. I think Notre Dame, very rarely will they apply pressure right from the get-go. And I think sometimes that makes it easier for Minnesota to play against them because they have the time to set up and regroup with the puck and gain some speed. It's just you have to know how to put the puck deep and apply pressure and disguise it so you're not too predictable. Because if you're predictable on where you're putting the puck, Notre Dame will just leak a guy back to get there quick, and they'll be coming back, and you'll have that rock fight that Bob talked about last year, where you're just putting it back, they put it in your end, you put it back, they put it in your end, and that's not fun to watch.
And one thing too is that, one thing that Wisconsin brought is that they've got a couple superstars on offense. You make a mistake, they make you pay for it. We saw that directly when Lacombe lost the puck to Mr. Caulfield, and wasn't more than 15 seconds later the puck was in the back of the net. I don't know if Notre Dame's got that kind of superstar that could really cause those kind of issues. But it was something that Wisconsin did exploit this past weekend. So,
yeah, I thought Wisconsin did pretty well applying the pressure when they had the opportunities. Cole Caulfield is obviously a different level. score, and he does
He
look
is.
like a more complete player than he's been in the past. He's a little heavier on things and finds space a little bit better. I think sometimes you get these talented players, sometimes they cheat at the start line, and that means they have to slow down for the finish line, and it allows everybody else to catch up. If you're a fast, talented player, you want to back up that start line as far back as you can so that you don't have to slow down. You want to be able to say, all right, let's do a real 100-meter race. I don't want to make this an 80-meter race and then I wait for you. You want that to be full speed to the end. And he's starting to get that now. And I think one of the things I noticed in the second game against Wisconsin is that when Minnesota does a better job of staying with their check, coming into their own zone, when there is a transition, they're able to get going and separate from their check as they transition from defense to offense. And I think sometimes in the ASU series and the first night against Wisconsin, that wasn't there. You had players kind of floating around the zone, not really tight to their check. So when there was a turnover, it's less clear where you can go to get to open ice, if that makes sense. And so offense definitely comes from defense. If you're in the right spot on defense, it's a lot clearer where you need to go to find space. If you're kind of already in space and not covering anybody, it's hard to get going. Like, you kind of have to wait for space to develop. And so I think that's one of the things that they're seeing in film is that, all right, let's be with our check and let's separate when we need to get going.
All right. Time for prediction. Notre Dame, always low scoring series. I'm thinking I'm picking sweep. Shocking. But I do think, Minnesota plays a little different game that they have been playing the last couple of years. They're more pressuring. They're following, like you said, they're following their checks. They're just doing things better. So I don't think every game is going to be a one game. I think we might get one of these games this weekend. It's maybe a 2 or 3 goal win. Not what we're used to, but I'm just predicting something a little different, just to throw a monkey wrench in their Vigs.
Ooh. I mean, I feel like it's hard to play Notre Dame's style at Mariucci. I think it can be tricky to do that. You get on the wider rink, the bigger corners. It's harder to play that choking style. And especially, I don't see this as being one of Notre Dame's strongest rosters.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the high-end talents that they've had a couple of years ago, where they can control the game with veteran centers who can win draws and make you defend all night. I don't think they have a team like that this year.
And they're not as solid in goal either.
They're not a solid goal. I think Pavanka's a good 1C. He's a good player for them, but he's not an elite 1C like we've seen from them in the past, where he'll go out and take every key face-off and be expected to win 70% of them. But I do have a feeling one of these games is going to go to OT. That's just the feeling I have. And that's kind of a up in the air piece. I think Gophers get 5 points this weekend.
5 points.
5 points. Not 6. 5.
Mote had the drum roll going, and he was waiting for you there.
Yeah, I just don't see Notre Dame being able to pull off a win, but I think they can force them to go to OT maybe.
It's going to be a sweep, man. It's going to be a sweep.
All right. Well, I think it's important for Notre Dame to stay out of the box against Minnesota. Their penalty kill is not very good this year. So
and Minnesota's is really good.
Minnesota's is really good.
And their power play is better than average.
I would not mind a special teams battle this weekend. We'll see what happens. We have seen a couple undisciplined penalties from the Gophers this season. Not a lot, but they have been taking a few bad penalties.
Mr. Walker.
He's got a couple of them.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of them. Brodzinski's got a couple. Perbix has a couple. I know McLaughlin's had some in the past. That's going to be important for them this weekend is to maybe spur Notre Dame to take some penalties, but stay out of the box yourself.
You working on anything these days?
I'm working on my family. This pandemic's tough on families with young kids. My kids have been doing some distance learning and things like that. So
you've already done it all. You might as well do that, man.
Yeah. So I'm looking to have some stuff out this season. We'll see. You know, it all kind of depends how the next couple of weeks goes with schooling and family and all that stuff. I'm starting to get a lot of good content together, and I've got a couple ideas that we'll see soon.
And hopefully they give you the keys back at the Athletic, man.
We'll see. It'd be nice if Minnesota keeps winning.
You know, it's a shame that this is a COVID season, because I think this is kind of the time where all of a sudden we start seeing the crowds coming back, because this is more of a winning team. And geez. And you know what else is a good thing? The Badgers being back. I'm just going to keep saying it. A good Badger team is good for Minnesota, and it's good for Minnesota. It just is.
If you have a good Michigan, a good Wisconsin, and a good Minnesota, you're going to have a good Big Ten. You know, if those three programs can all get their feet under them and start running and playing in the NCAA tournaments, I think this conference can hang in there and be viable. and I think that maybe Pearson and Granado are maybe getting an idea of how to do that, because Bob definitely does. Mm-hmm. He's got a good roster right now. And I think the key for Minnesota recruiting wise is going to be to keep finding defensemen like the ones they have in the pipeline. You know, they've got Chelsea and Middlestat coming down the line here, but they're going to have to keep finding those guys. That's what makes this team hum.
It definitely does. Well, remember, you can always follow Vigo at eVigo on Twitter, and obviously go for Puck Live on Twitter as well, because no one wants to follow my personal account. I'm not that interesting. But that's really going to do it for this podcast. You got anything else, Vigs? Because I don't.
Enjoy the games while you can. Every game is a gift.
Boy, that is the truth, because you just never know when things will end. Well, we will be back next week for, and recap this Notre Dame series and preview another series with Arizona State coming back into town. For those of you watching live on YouTube, stay tuned for some overtime. For the rest of you, we'll be back next Wednesday for another GPL podcast. Thanks for listening.